Faced with a serious budget problem, the Hunter Orchestra recently launched a public appeal to raise $150,000. So far, just under a third of the target has been donated. The state government has promised $10,000 in funds. The orchestra's financial situation was today described as tense. The crisis has brought forward the next scheduled board meeting by 2 weeks. On Thursday night, tough decisions are expected to be made.
Well, it is never easy, and obviously we'll have to cut back here and there. We'll have to obviously make some sacrifices on the way, and what these sacrifices exactly will be, that will obviously, as you said, on Thursday will be decided.
The orchestra's artistic director, Roland Peelman, talked about the problems and challenges ahead with local business people. While the financial strain was placing a heavy burden on the orchestra's future, he feels confident it won't fold.
I believe, and I'm very confident, that the major thrust of our program of this year will survive and will come through, and that we will be able to devise a program for next year which will be equally exciting, and that we will lay the fundamentals for the next stages of growth.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Adrian Bryant has only 8 days left to save his properties from the bank. He owns 6, has been evicted from 5 of them, and looks likely to be forced off the last, Blair Hill Station at Stonehenge, next Thursday.
On the 14th of July, I've got to be off the property, and anything they'll leave behind, the bank claims that they're going to claim it and sell it.
Mr Bryant took out a loan with the ANZ Bank in 1986. He was summoned for repossession last year. He says he's since spent all his income defending himself, but now the ANZ is refusing to negotiate.
I've got my accountant to do budgets, and my rural counsellor helped me do a budget, and we've submitted them to the bank and they won't even look at it. And even though I can pay the interest on the debt and some part of the principal off at the end of the year, they won't even talk to me.
There are 1,200 head of stud cattle and 1,500 fine wool merinos on Mr Bryant's properties. And with prices improving for cattle and fine wool, Mr Bryant says the bank is being unfair.
It's my property, they're trying to steal it off me, and I want to see some justice done.
Newcastle's young gymnast Darren Fewings showed his voice was just as versatile as his body to open the Festival of Sport. The concept originated 5 years ago and now boasts 6 academies. Over the next week, basketballers, rugby league players, softballers and netballers will play against each other. Athletes in other sports will undergo a week of intensive training. The activities are aimed at developing young talent and producing future champions.
Well, we'd love to have some of these kids at the 2000 Olympics, and in fact I think it's possible maybe for some of them to be at Atlanta in '96.
One athlete sure to be in Olympic calculations is 9-year-old gymnast Brianna Brent from Newcastle, who has just been invited to train for the New South Wales team. And in the year of the coach, the opening also recognised the people who helped these children and others to reach their potential, including Falcons coach Tom Wiseman and former Breakers coach Graham Jennings.
We have so many very fine coaches, you know, the Robin Leggett's, the Max Dedmans, I could go on. People who've been right at the top of their sports and now dedicating a lot of time to youngsters.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Joel Burke in the white cap from the Belmore Club in Sydney is only 17, but he's already turned professional. He's rated one of the top 10 bowlers in the state and has beaten some of the best senior players in the country. So it was obviously a daunting task for his opponent, East Maitland's Michael Cronin. The 17-year-old could only plug away and hope Burke faltered, but it wasn't to be. Burke was in the groove from the start at Hamilton Bowling Club, establishing a 3-0 lead after the first end. After 4 ends, Burke was well on his way with a 7-2 lead. Cronin continued to play his shots, but Burke was simply too good, winning 25-12. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's the number of deaths which has the Cessnock community concerned. Since November, 7 teenagers have died from road accidents. Mayor Marie Callaghan believes something must be done to stop the carnage. She wants to see driver training in all schools.
In Cessnock we have no public transport, so you need to get a licence at an early age in order to get to employment or entertainment. So there's more young people on the roads, so obviously we must teach them to be able to handle the roads.
A motion will be put to Council tonight calling for the city to lobby both state and federal governments for action. Also tonight, Council will consider possible improvements to the Corribalong Road at Kitchener. One option is to reduce the speed limit from 100 to 60 kilometres an hour. If the speed limit isn't reduced, it's estimated almost $400,000 will have to be spent on the road to bring it up to a standard suited to 100 kilometres an hour. While residents have long campaigned for improvements to the road, the matter came to Council's attention after an accident last month in which an 18-year-old woman was killed after her utility rolled. Statistics, however, show that there have been upwards of 15 crashes on the road since 1992.
I don't think any of us were aware of the condition of that road before. I certainly wasn't. But having it brought to our attention, we're taking action now.
Within the next week, warning signs will be erected on the worst parts of the road. $40,000 will also be spent upgrading the section where the latest fatality occurred. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
This Sunday's game between Newcastle and Brisbane promises to be a thriller, and supporters were out in their hundreds today ensuring they'll have a spot in the crowd. Within 40 minutes of the night's ticket office opening at 10 this morning, all concourse seats were sold out, the first time that's happened this season. So far, 10,000 tickets have been pre-sold, with only outer ground places left. These are also selling fast, but Knights boss Brad Mellon says around 15,000 general admission tickets will be held over for sale on Sunday, so those people who normally purchase their tickets on game day will be able to. And in other rugby league news, last night South Newcastle registered its 6th win in a row, defeating Curry 16-4. It was a hard-fought encounter with players rolled up for the game. South scored 2 tries in the first half, Brett Botham claiming both. Both sides scored a try apiece in the second half, South the tidier team on the night. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. The Belmont Baptist Christian Community School has been open for 3 years. Its establishment the result of church members pooling funds to buy the land. Between 6 and 9 o'clock last night, a 14-year-old girl and boy aged 11, both from the area, allegedly broke into the school library, ransacked rooms and used books and lawnmower fuel to start a fire. Police say the pair then went to a nearby tennis club, broke in and splattered paint everywhere.
Peers have come back here to the school after the initial fire has gone out. We believe they've relit a number of other fires.
Richard Halstead, who lives close by, is one church member who invested his own money to make the school a reality. Hearing noises inside the school, he and his dog Conan went to investigate.
And on getting a bit closer, of course, I could smell the smoke, looked up, saw smoke coming out of the building, went a bit closer and saw the flames all going inside the building.
With the police and fire brigade alerted, other church members came to help, using buckets of water to douse the fire.
It seemed a waste that the 2 young people that were involved really had nothing better to do with their time, and had come down and sort of demolished the place.
The school now says it will be upgrading its security. The youths were arrested near the school last night and later charged with several offences, including causing malicious damage to property. They've been bailed and are due to appear in Warramai Children's Court on July 24th. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The Chamber announced its new president and board of directors at City Hall today. Stepping down from his 2-year term, outgoing President Colin Chapman installed retailer Paul Murphy as the new leader. Of last year's 15 directors, 14 were returned, but not former president and board member for the past 15 years, Peter Evans. He's been replaced by former BHP chief Rob Chenery.
Well, it represents, I think, about 36 years, father and son. So, well, I'm on the State Chamber of Commerce. There are plenty of things to do down there, and I'll continue to look after Newcastle as best I can.
With the addition of 130 new members in the past year, a total of 635 took part in the ballot. Sources say lack of support for Mr Evans could have been in response to his recent handling of city centre issues.
It's just a shame, anything like that unfortunately people have spent so much time and effort and years in supporting the Newcastle people just happen to miss out because they feel that somebody else has more to offer possibly.
Mr Murphy sees the next 2 years as challenging.
Of course, we have honeysuckle going ahead. We've got our mall redevelopment program that we'd be looking at. We've got the city centre committee. We've got our council backing. There's lots of things within this area, but then I've also got to identify with things that are outside the region.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
It was a bad start for South in the red and white, conceding a penalty from the kick-off against Toronto. But South withstood the early charge from its more favoured opponents. Once in possession, the ball was thrown wide, Darren Mikowski picking up the last pass to cross for the first try. Nigel Henry's kick made it 6-0. South continued to carve up Toronto's defence, a Brett Ryder tackle preventing the visitors from scoring a second four-pointer. Minutes later and South was on the attack again, Tim Butler bombing the try after passing the ball when he could have scored himself. Toronto bounced back to show why it was second on the ladder, this kick just a fraction long. But South proved its final credentials with a 32-12 win. In other games, North Nelson Bay walloped Cessnock 50-18, and Curry was too good for Maitland, winning by 28 points to 16. The best young bowlers have gathered at Gosford over the past 2 weeks for the national under-18s titles. Today, the top performers were on show to contest the Masters title. American Jeremy Sonnenfeld was up against Lismore bowler Scott Sadler in the men's final. Sadler bowled well, but the American was brilliant, scoring 460 to win the title. In the women's event, Sydney's Maxine Nabel was too good for Queensland's Linda Christopher. And the national under-16 women's soccer final was held at Lake Macquarie today. New South Wales was trying to erase yesterday's loss in the Association Trophy to Queensland, but was under pressure early. The Blues, however, fought back to trouble the Maroons with aggressive football. The crossbar saved the Maroons from one Blue attack, but it wasn't enough on the day, with New South Wales taking out the championship trophy 2-1. But some consolation for Queensland, with plenty of Maroons expected to be named in the national under-16 side tonight. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Neil Bates' Celica GT4 helped the Canberra driver recapture the form that won him last year's Rally Series. Bridgestone Precision Driving Team member Stuart Reid in a Celica overcame early trouble to finish second after day one. Newcastle's Michael Guest led the series going into the Rally of Queensland, but he blew a turbo and was forced out of the event. This played into the hands of Bates, who conquered the dirt near the Glasshouse Mountains to win by 62 seconds. The final 4 stages will be held at the Glasshouse Mountains tomorrow.
Police say the Toyota Lexus was heading north on the Pacific Highway near the Buckets Way turnoff around 5:15 last night when it veered onto the wrong side of the road and crashed into the path of an oncoming semi-trailer. The driver, 39-year-old Jeffrey Peter Lamb, died on impact. His vehicle crushed underneath the front of the prime mover carrying a load of cars. Police say it was a lucky escape for the 31-year-old semi-trailer driver from Mungay Creek near Kempsey. He suffered only minor leg injuries and was transported to the John Hunter Hospital in a stable condition. The highway was blocked for nearly 2 hours, wreckage strewn along the roadside for more than 100 metres. Investigations are still continuing. Police believe high speed could have contributed to the accident.
Police say the couple had been travelling on the Newell Highway, about 30 kilometres north of Coonabarabran, when the accident occurred. They say the car appears to have suffered a blowout before running off the road and crashing into a ditch. An elderly woman was killed when she was thrown from the car. The driver, an 82-year-old Victorian man, is in a stable condition in Coonabarabran Hospital. He suffered serious head injuries, fractured ribs and extensive cuts and bruising. Emma Siossian, NBN News.
The skills of dark-haired Tamara Hackett and Tracy Baker shone through during last week's national under-16 soccer titles, their form helping them gain selection in the Australian team.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Didn't know what to say.
The 15-year-old midfielder from Cardiff was especially pleased. After injuring her back and missing 2 games in the national championship, she thought her chances were dashed. Now she's more determined than ever, training every day. To 16-year-old Tamara Hackett, representing her country isn't new. She did so last year in the Australian under-19 indoor soccer team. But outdoor is her first love, as is being a goalkeeper.
I like diving and getting muddy when it's raining and everything. It's a good position because you get to see the whole game because it's in front of you.
it's reaching. Just pump it away. See? I feel really blessed. It's nothing on.
Adrian Bryant took out a loan with the ANZ Bank in 1986. He was summoned for repossession last year. The ANZ Bank has since evicted Mr Bryant from 5 of his 6 properties, 2 near Glen Innes and 1 near Casino, to recover outstanding debts. The bank had threatened to force Mr Bryant off the last property, Blair Hill Station at Stonehenge, today. But in a late change of heart, the bank has agreed to consider a new finance proposal.
I've been here busting my guts to produce good cattle and provide food for the people of Australia, and they've just been grinding me into the ground.
Local residents have rallied to support Mr Bryant.
I was hopeful but certainly not confident that something like this would happen, and it really does make me pleased that it shows that if you stay in there and fight that you can get somewhere.
Mr Bryant has a week left to save his properties from the bank. Emma Ossian, NBN News. Since November last year, police have been negotiating for a pay rise to bring them in line with officers in other states. They want a 23% increase. However, the best the government has come up with is 13%, announced late yesterday. Police Minister Gary West claims this latest offer will make New South Wales Police the best paid in the country. However, a short time ago, Newcastle and Central Coast Police refuted that claim, rejecting the government's offer. The meeting at Broadmeadow was the first in a series of gatherings around the state and a strong indication of the unity officers have on this issue. Also endorsed a campaign of industrial action to begin at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
It'll be a strict work to rule campaign. That's a wide range of activities that will virtually be a go slow, if you like. Again, I emphasise at this time that there'll be no action taken that will compromise public safety.
The government had threatened to withdraw all offers if police decided to go ahead with their industrial action. That ultimatum has been met head-on.
A strange type of action, given that this is a government that has been forcing everybody down the road of enterprise bargaining.
These pamphlets will be distributed in 10 marginal seats around the state. Meetings are planned for Goulburn, Orange and Lismore, with a mass meeting in Sydney on August 7th. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Most of the 200 of the striking Transport Workers Union members attended the Carrington meeting to decide on a return to work. They walked out on Wednesday afternoon after talks on wage and working conditions broke down with the Port Waratah coal service. In the Industrial Commission yesterday, Commissioner Harrison recommended a return to work.
What do you think they're doing? They're getting negative answers all the time.
If we're not satisfied with the progress through the third party, we can always come back in a few weeks' time and put our hands up again.
The union claims workers haven't had a pay rise for 2 years and it wants about a 10% increase. It's also fighting moves by PWCS to introduce a 7-day roster and a salary pay system. After nearly an hour, workers were still divided.
Have an immediate return to work. Rise again.
Another count provided a close decision in favour of a return to work. Port Waratah Coal says the 2-day stoppage had minimal effect on its coal loading timetable, with no ships waiting in port. The two parties will go before the Commission again next Wednesday. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Workers began the huge job of tearing down the ruins around 7 o'clock this morning. The heat from last Sunday morning's fire so intense, concrete supports crumbled away. Tons of metal and rubble will be trucked off over the next 2 weeks, followed by the planning of a replacement building.
The plans are looked at by the school for a month and negotiation, etc. I'd imagine we'd be back in the new wing by the end of next year.
Work is continuing across the weekend to construct 42 demountable classrooms. By Monday, around half will be operational, ready for the return of all students on Tuesday.
Well, when the junior school comes back, they'll be a little surprised and stunned, I imagine, for a while, but great school spirit, so morale will definitely be there.